numbering, and then I will start. A very good morning to the participants, respected judges, moderators, and the teachers, and a grand welcome to the finale of the Asian Parliamentary Debate. After a successful day one, we expect the same amount of enthusiasm and competition in today's session. The host for today's event will be Vidyut Chattopadhyay, a new addition to our team, and Unnava Goswami. So without wasting any further time, I will pass my floor to Vidyut. Vidyut, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Anvesh. So good morning, one and all. It's so great to finally see all of you and be part of the finals of the Asian Parliamentary Debate. So I'd like to take this moment to reintroduce the judges. We have Soham Gupta as well as Supreet Behra as the judges for the finals, and our moderator, sir, Raibat Sinha. I would also like to firstly congratulate the teams on qualifying to the finals, and that is the houses Agni and Vaayu. And without waiting any further, I would like to pass on the mic to Raibat Sinha, our moderator.
Thank you, Vidyut. So hello and welcome everybody. Good morning. Today, the motion for today's debate, before I can go on to quote it, is again a motion that is becoming increasingly relevant in today's age of growing capitalism and its war with the left. And it's also important from a perspective of the youth, which is slowly emerging into the leaders of the global economy. And so today's motion is that this House believes that compulsory maternity or paternity leave is an unreasonable demand. And we have Vaayu House speaking in favor of this motion, so their team proposition, and essentially that means that they're the government. And we have Agni House in the opposition, which essentially means that, again, their team opposition. Before I can begin with the speeches, I feel that it is important to mention a few logistical things. When a speaker speaks, if everyone else could please mute their mics. If a person has a question at the end of a speaker's speech, again, at the end of a speaker's speech, not while they're, going on with their speech, kindly mention it in the chat box without interrupting the flow of the debate. And again, yes, if you have any remarks to make, if you have any questions in general directed at me, the moderator, you can raise them when one particular speaker is not speaking, right? So yes, I think we're ready to begin. If the timekeeper is all right with that,
Yes, perfect. We can begin now.
Perfect. All right. So the Prime Minister for the government today is Devam Sarkar. So I invite him to deliver his speech. Devam, you have the floor if you're ready.
Yeah, right. So just a small request, could the timer be screen shared? If that's possible.
Is that possible?
That would be
Isn't
better,
it possible, Devam, to have a timer right next to you for your person?
Yes, that will be very convenient because I will be already.
Also, moderators, I have a question. Can we choose our tapping preferences? Because usually we are.
See.
All right.
As relaxed as possible. Here you can take such liberties. Again, I must remind you that not everywhere will you be given such liberties. But yes, if you do prefer not to be interrupted between your speech, or if you prefer to be interrupted in the beginning, in the beginning 2 minutes, so that whatever it is, kindly mention that to the timekeeper. All right. Yes. So that's about it. Devam, are you ready?
Yes, sir. I'm very ready.
So I invite Devam Sarkar, the Prime Minister for the government, to deliver his speech. Devam, you have the floor.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Devam Sarkar representing the Prime Minister from the side of the proposition. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me first set down the ambit as to what the proposition thinks here. Now, understand that the proposition believes that there is nothing wrong with taking maternity or paternity leave. However, the real crux of the matter is that it should not be made compulsory in any regard. It's completely up to the discretion of that particular person when we talk about the maternity or the paternity leave. Now, at the very outset, let me point out something which is to be considered by the entire House. You have to understand when speaking in terms of the government jobs and the government sector, when a particular person is employed at a government job, what happens is generally the money that is given as a paid leave to the father or the mother in that regard, it's generally cut down from the welfare budget of the country. That is actually a symbol which harms the entire welfare and is something which is to be considered on the negative side of the spectrum. Nextly, we have to understand that the choice of having a particular child is a personal relation. However, when you're going and working at a particular workplace, it's a professional relation. Now, this creates a conflict between the personal and the professional relationship. So it's completely up to the discretion of the particular individual that we are talking about, and it's up to the discretion whether he wants to have it or not. So the concept of personal and professional relationship has also to be taken into account when we are speaking of this particular topic. Now, nextly, we have to understand certain demerits of this particular motion at hand. We have to understand that when a mother or a father is taking leave for a certain stipulated time frame, what happens is when he returns to that workplace, adjusting becomes very difficult for him. It's a huge gap. It's a huge gap for the mother or the father staying at home. Adjusting becomes a problem, and getting into that particular environment and the ambience of the workplace is something which is very difficult. Nextly, we have to understand that going to work while a particular woman is pregnant is very good for the mental health, because she is actually active in that particular workplace. When she is sitting at home with her only child, it may cause certain problems, because we have seen the different cases of just the thought process when you're sitting alone in a particular environment in your homes. It's something which affects the mental health in a negative manner. However, when you are involved in a particular work or you are active, it is something which is certainly good for the mental health. We have also to understand that instead of what the government should do in this regard is give the particular woman who is pregnant a very physically less intensive job. In fact, we have seen that most of the women are employed in sectors wherein which is basically not which involves the intellect and mind work rather than physically working in a particular environment. This is what is to be encouraged by the companies itself. So taking into that, I come to one of the most important crux of the matter here. That is, we have to understand it when a father or a mother is going to have a child. It is generally the time when the particular family needs more resources and more money. However, what we generally see in the cases of paid leave is that the paid leave is generally much more less. It's not the general salary which a person gets during the proper working time. In the case of that particular paid leave, the amount which he or she receives is much less. However, that is the particular time when the resources needed by the particular family is much more. So this creates a conflict, and this is what is to be addressed in totality, right? Lastly, we have to see that according to the data and the statistic provided by the International Labour Organization, we have seen that the women who have stayed in their homes during the particular time of the pregnancy, or the father who has stayed in the particular time of the individuality and when they are particularly pregnant, we have to understand that is the time which is not particularly appreciated, and is certainly certainly a time wherein the baby could be affected, because, as I said previously as well, the mental health issue is something which is to be brought up in context of that particular thing. So with that, I rest my case. You're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you, Devam. Before we entertain questions for Devam's speech, which we will, would you allow a small clarification from my end?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
You mentioned that you came across an International Labour Organization statistic, which happens to mention the state of being of any person, which is not much appreciated according to the terms you used, and the baby could be affected, right? Would you happen to know, this is just a clarification, I'm not asking you to produce anything, would you happen to know how that statistic came about, or how it was formulated? Would you happen to know? Because it seems rather, for any statistic to be conducted, it needs to have proper concrete material to be weighed against, right? So would you happen to know how that statistic came about, or what that statistic essentially means? Could you clarify about it?
No, sir. Obviously, the process of carrying out that particular survey is not on.
I don't mean the process of carrying out that survey. Since you meant, since you said about that statistic that the time being of pregnancy at home, spent at home, is not appreciated as much and the baby's health could be affected. Would you happen to know anything more concrete about that statistic? Do you know any numbers? Do you know something concrete about a statistic? That one.
Yeah, it's basically, I can tell you the percentage, that is the 30% of women who have stayed. Now, the survey that was conducted with a particular set of people, which was around 1,000 people, right? So the number of people is constant here. And within that 1,000 people of the test subjects, basically, 30% of those particular women and the children were somehow affected either mentally or in that particular regard.
Thank you. Right, we'll be entertaining questions. Does anyone have a question on Devam's speech? Vedanshi Tare has a question. Vedanshi, yes.
He said that the paid leaves will drain the welfare funds of our country, but according to the laws, it is the employer who has to bear all the costs of the paid leave. Then how is the welfare funds of the country being drained?
Devam.
Yeah, so that was in regards to government sector jobs itself. That was not with regards to the private sector jobs. The concept of the employer paying it is only when we talk about the private sector jobs where the employer is self-employed and it's not the state fund which is going. However, in the case of government jobs, the paid leaves are obviously going from the side of the government. So that is why I said that the welfare budget is drained.
Right. Thank you, Devam, for your speech. Now, as and when we go on with this debate, as what happens in parliamentary debates as usual, is that the moderator sort of encapsulates certain key points that he came across in the debate, which I personally would like everyone to take note of. If that could be incorporated, that would be appreciated as well. So Devam essentially spoke about a lot of detriments or like a lot of demerits which are associated with a compulsory maternity leave. He focused on the government aspect of things. He focused on how the maternity leave as a compulsory payment might drain out the country's funds. He presented statistics where apparently those statistics happen to mention that the time spent during pregnancy, if spent at home, will not really be appreciated as much, are not appreciated as much from the aspect of a baby's mental or physical health. And that a government employer or the government in general should appreciate or should encourage women to be employed in comparatively physically less intensive jobs during their time of pregnancy. Right. We move on to the opposition, and from the opposition Agni House, we have the leader of opposition, Aditya Das. So Aditya, if you're ready, I would like to welcome you to deliver your speech. So you have the floor.
Yeah, am I both
Yes,
audible and visible? Okay, so a very good morning to one and all present here. So in the speech of the Prime Minister, there were a lot of points that I would love to address in front of the entire House. Let me start off by addressing a point that the speaker before me has put stressed upon, and I would like to clear my stance and my entire opposition side stance on it. First of all, mental health in a woman, in a pregnant woman, and also in the baby during the period of this maternity. There is a term, postpartum. In this, which basically happens is a mother may feel depression or may feel not so good staying away from his child. We must understand that in our society where children are the future of our nations, it is very important that a proper parent-infantile takes place at the bottom level, that is when the baby is growing up. And how this benefits a proper parent-infant bonding likely leads to increased feeling of security both in the case of the baby and in the case of the mother and father. it increases the love and expectance, which turns to decrease in juvenile delinquency and adult crime, poverty, and prevents the most important thing that is required in our society right now, that is breakdown of the family. We should understand that the most important thing when a mother takes leave from work is that she can impact her family, she can impact the society in a better way. The most impacting thing that the parent can do is produce children that are stable, healthy, and well adjusted to the society. How can she do this? By spending time when a baby is just growing in years. One more thing I would like to address, which is the speaker said, is that the role of fathers in this job, or how in that part also the mental health is present. The most intriguing idea in corporate benefits in these times is not on-site nap rooms. It's not workplace yoga or unlimited paid vacation. It's a mandatory paternity leave, a practice that means that new dads don't just have the option to take time off, they have to stay home with a new baby. That's one of the main reasons that paternity leave is such a timely and extremely important idea. Recently, a Wall Street Journal ran a piece entitled "Want Equality? Make the Dad Stay Home." Why does a company say this? Because in countries like Norway and Sweden, which provide paid leave, these places are on the top of the industrialized nations in comparison with other countries which do not provide paid leave. Why does this help the society? Why am I emphasizing on this? Why leave will help the industry and also the society? We must understand that once mothers and fathers start taking parental leave in a more equal measures, which will happen when this is made compulsory, the wage gap in society begins to shrink. For example, a 30-year study of 12,000 people conducted by the University of Massachusetts Amherst saw that the woman's earnings dropped by 4% after the birth of each child, while new dads receive more of a 6% bump. What if both this, it was made compulsory that a parental leave should be taken brought? What will happen then? Equality would be seen because both of them would have equal chance to take a leave, will have equal chance, equal pay, and will equal chance to have and stay with their baby. Now, another point was mentioned that this is not beneficial for, I would like to come to the ending part. This is not, paternity leave is beneficial for business, but I would like to strongly counter this. Even companies that are committed to bringing gender equality to the workplace will perhaps think that this lot of expense goes on into mandatory leave. But in Norway, where new parents receive 46 leaves of full salary, what happens is the government subsidizes parental leave and early childcare, which in turn later on creates increase in GDP because of the mothers who stay in the workforce after the leave, because as after the work they come back from the leave, there is a more vigor to contribute back to the company or the society, because they can see that the society has helped them when they were tackling the most important phase of their life, that is bringing a new life into this world. So what happens is they try and contribute more and more to the company and society. I would like to end my speech by saying that this is an idea which will help all the different aspects of society and thus should be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya. To my mind, Aditya extended time slightly.
7 seconds.
Thank you. We'll be entertaining questions for Aditya's speech. Are there any questions? Any questions at all for Aditya's speech? Yes. Arth has a question. Yes, Arth.
Yes, moderator sir, my question to Aditya would be, isn't it unfair to assume that it's a company's responsibility? Because today, a relationship between the employee and the employer is very personal, and having a child is very professional, and having a child is very personal matter. So mixing up of both professional and the personal matter, isn't it unfair to assume that it's the company's responsibility to provide pay to the father or the mother when they take the leave for their children?
Thank you, Art. Before Aditya answers, I would just like everyone to take note of one thing, which is take note of the manner in which Art asked his question. All your questions must be directed at me, the moderator, whether you like it or not, and thereby implying that it's directed at the person who spoke, right? So if all of you could be mindful of that. Yes, Aditya.
Yeah, so moderator sir, to answer to the Earth's question, the companies are the companies which provide parental leave to their employees. We must note that they have fewer absences and are more productive after they return to the workplace. And in companies, especially in the European, they are, even though earlier times they did not believe that giving compulsory leave was necessary for their growth, but now it has been seen repeatedly that every survey, most of the surveys that have found that after a person leaves this for a leave and then comes back, then they are more likely to help the company. They respect the flexibility of the company. So to answer your question, it is in a part necessary for a company to give leave to a person, because first of all, what is a company's main goal? Get the best out of his their employees, to make the best of his or her potentials. And for that, a company must understand that in a time when a person requires a help at its maximum level, they should provide it, because that will provide help to their company itself, and that most companies have already done that in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya. So again, team opposition's argument seemed to be focused on the merits of compulsory maternity leave. The leader of opposition also placed a lot of emphasis on the role of male parents, on the role of fathers who should be entitled to paternity leave, in their opinion. They presented examples of one Nordic country, and provided statistics as well, placing a lot of importance on why the employer-employee relationship would improve upon providing that employee said maternity or paternity leave. Yes, we move on to the Deputy Prime Minister for the government, which is Arth Agarwal. Arth, if you're ready, I would like to invite you to deliver your speech. So whenever you're ready, you have the floor.
Absolutely. Just give me like 5 seconds. I think I have a connection issue.
While Arth gets ready, I would like to make one thing very clear. Ideally, in parliamentary debates, we would like, again, this is essentially because, again, all of this won't be clarified, but since I have this opportunity to sit down with juniors, I would just like to make something clear about parliamentary debates, is that definitions, ambit, scope, these things matter a lot, all right? So if you could define what you mean, if you could explain the scope of what you mean, all right? If you could place emphasis, again, think back to the motion, think back to the various elements of that motion. It's not a unidirectional motion. It has various elements to it. So if you could think about those things, that would be much appreciated.
So can I? Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, I would like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister of the government, Arth Agarwal, to kindly deliver his speech.
So am I audible and visible?
Yes.
All right. So a very good morning to one and all present here. So firstly, when we talk about the inclusion of the existence of maternity and paternity leaves, we must understand, when we talk about, let alone the private sector, when we talk about the government sector, as the Prime Minister already talked about the welfare budget thing, we must understand that we must question rather, how will the funds be allocated to the ones applying for maternity and paternity leaves? Because the money which is going to be used is going to be the taxpayers' money. And therefore, I personally feel that it will be extremely unfair to use the taxpayers' money for that regard, And when we use and increase the welfare budget, we also need to take into account that the government has to reduce funding in other places, which is also harmful for the democratical ethos of the particular government ruling at that point of time. Now, when we talk about the age group, which particularly when we talk about the workforce, the work labor force, and the age group, what that we take into account, the target audience basically, in Western nations, women of age 30 to 34 generally are the ones having children. And in India, it's the age group is 24 to 30. So the age groups, when we talk about these age groups are very productive age groups. And when we talk about small startups today, small startups do not have the excessive funding to provide maternity and paternity leaves. Therefore, even women with excellent capabilities, with exceptional capabilities, if they apply for these jobs in these startups, they won't get it because people at positions of power won't accept their applications because of the particular age group, which also will lead to sexism against women in higher rates, which is very, very harmful for the economic functioning of the society. And when we talk about the gender-based perspective and the inclusion of gender-based perspective into the economic scenario of a nation. Now, since Devam talked about how the mental health of a mother or a father is affected due to staying at home with a single child, the best solution to that is offices can create breastfeeding centers for mothers so that even if they come to office, let's say 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 4 days a week, they have the alternative to bring their children there and use the breastfeeding centers efficaciously. Now, when we talk about the whole productivity thing, the whole allocating the job to moms thing, we must take into account a beautiful example of a company called Inkwell. The CEO of Inkwell herself, Manon DeFelice, is a proud mom of 3 children, and she has been very successful in connecting talented mothers of various age groups with proper companies. Now, these proper companies give part-time. To call the job the part-time job would be a misnomer, but the idea and the conception that the value of hours or the work hours put behind will lead to more productivity is very, very wrong, because studies by many Ivy League colleges clearly show that productivity can also be increased even if the work hours are lesser. And people with professional qualifications and high qualifications can easily be inculcated into this. In fact, talented mothers, which Inkwell has been doing. And in this regard, it's very important to mention the example of Inkwell because it has been doing an important job, and it's a beautiful job that they are connecting the mothers with certain companies. They do not part-time jobs, but a lot of jobs with higher productivity rates. Now, when we assume, for example, today companies are providing maternity and paternity leaves, it is very wrong to assume that it is the responsibility of the company, because the company already has to fulfill its corporate social responsibility, which is the CSR, and adding another responsibility on top of the corporate social responsibility is very, very wrong, because that shouldn't be the case. Today, startups, if you want startups to function in your country, if you want startups to grow in your country, and you put that additional budget and you put that additional pressure on the startups of your nation, then I don't really think that that's a plausible solution, because when you increase the pressure on the startups, more and more women won't apply for those jobs, and it will be a men-dominated corporate world, which is basically very harmful for any economic institution or any economic scenario of a country. This whole matter of the paid leave is like a donut. It looks very beautiful from all sides, but end of the day, there's a big hole in the middle. And therefore, we would like to say that there are better alternatives. There are better solutions to paid maternity leaves. For example, when we talk about the United States of America, many democratic voices have talked about the state package allocation. This is the plan which helps the parents of the children to save up to 30% of taxation, so that that money can be used for their maternity and paternity leaves when they take those voluntary leaves. And this is a very, very brilliant alternative by the Democrats of the United States of America, because it's something which will, number one, it's something which will increase the work productivity. And number two, it also gives them the sense of the feeling that they are using their own money for their child's development and not the welfare budget, which is basically the taxpayers' money. Hereby, I would like to end my speech. I would like to rest my case, but not my stance, and I would like to accept questions on my arguments presented. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Moderator, sir, you're muted.
Apologies. Yes. Thank you very much, Arth. Would you entertain a question from the judges' end? I believe one of the judges.
Absolutely.
Soham?
So you mentioned in the beginning of your speech studies by numerous Ivy League universities, but you didn't mention any. Could you name any of the studies that you have in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a particular study by, I am sorry, I just don't remember the exact connotation because the research material I was following had that many top leading Ivy League universities had presented research materials. And it was a collective study, I think, just a second. I have the material open somewhere. It was a collective study by, I think, the University of Harvard. I'll have to confirm on that because I was following a research document for that particular matter, but I will be following up on the statistics if the judges require more elaboration on that part of my speech.
Thank you. Thank you, Arth. We will be entertaining questions. But before that, what was the time like, Anvesh?
5 minutes, 11 seconds.
Hi. Thank you. We will be entertaining questions for the Deputy Prime Minister's speech. Also, I would request, Anvesh, that if the time has been extended for more than 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 seconds, let's say, then kindly mention it. All right?
Okay, sure.
Yes. Questions? Is there any question? If there is no question, would the Deputy Prime Minister like to entertain a question from the moderator's end?
Absolutely, sir.
So you happen to mention that you mentioned certain age brackets, and you mentioned that these are the most productive age groups, and thereby.
No, sir. These are the age groups which are most likely to have children.
Yeah, likely to have children, and you went on to mention that these are productive age groups. I remember you used the word productive.
For startups.
Yes, for startups, and startups simply don't have that kind of money. Would you happen to know of any startup? Well, I happen to know of one, the model of which has been implied and implemented by many other startups, Zomato. So Zomato provides paid maternity leave, paid paternity leave to all its employees simply because it has a budget which does not have any loose ends at the end of it, right? And it doesn't have a budget out of which, it doesn't have a pocket out of which the money goes. You see, the money is in a circle. So if it comes back, it's put back into the cycle of, it circles back essentially. So would you not think that that is also an alternative that could be implemented along with state packages that are perhaps more likely to be implemented in government employed jobs?
Not really, sir. Sir, my argument essentially means that I think it's unfair to add another burden on the startups and the small businesses because they already have the corporate social responsibility, which is the CSR. And the CSR is an enormous burden on the companies altogether. And therefore, if you add another burden to pay the paid maternity leaves and the paternity leaves, then these companies, we don't give them the arena to grow and grow economically. And when we talk about the inclusion of these people, in the first place, these companies won't take people of these age groups because of their preconceived notion that these people will be having children and they will have to pay, which is very, very natural for any economic company to do so. So I want to say that this needs to be eradicated so that a gender perspective is maintained when we talk about the formation of workplaces, because there needs to be diversity of both the genders both the sexes in a workplace. And it is important to increase the participation and inclusivity in workplaces from various diverse communities, from various diverse kinds of people, basically. So it's really, really important under the ILO gender equality and diversity goal as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Arth. I have been requested by team opposition that the deputy opposition speaker's window has frozen. Has it frozen? Could he?
Yes, sir. It's become all right, sir.
Okay, has it? Okay, then perfect. All right. I invite the deputy leader of opposition. Before I invite the deputy leader of opposition, I would just like to encapsulate parts of what I thought were important. The government then went on to increase its case, and it went on to emphasize on the case that was made by the Prime Minister by mentioning that the allocation of funds for a government will become an extremely difficult task because
I think there is an issue with the moderator. Please wait.
yes, am I back?
Yes.
All right. I'm very sorry. My internet seems to go on and off every now and then. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you are.
So, just sort of reiterating on what the government's case was, the government went on to talk about the allocation of funds and provide an instance of how the allocation of funds will become an extremely difficult task for the government sector, because the money that will go into paying maternity and paternity leave will essentially come out of the taxpayers' money. They then went on to provide a lot of statistics about how certain age brackets are particularly the age brackets where primarily pregnancy occurs, and how these are productive age groups for different startups in various economies which don't have money to provide maternity leave. So it becomes an unnecessary burden. The government focused a lot on this word burden because since CSR or corporate social responsibility initiatives are already burdens for corporations, this would be an added burden. They then went on to talk about how this would impact gender diversity issues and how this would impact the gender diversity ratios in a lot of workplaces, and how there are better alternatives than applying the compulsory maternity leave proposition, right? Yes, very sorry again. I'm extremely sorry. But yes, that was essentially what the government's case was. And am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
All right. So we will be moving on to the Deputy Leader of Opposition's speech. The Deputy Leader of Opposition is Akash Kaur from Agni House. So Akash, if you're ready, I would like to invite you to deliver your speech. You have the floor. Akash, you're not audible. I believe Akash has left the meeting. What we will do again is, okay, he's joined.
Sir, can you hear me now? Actually,
Yes,
I'm having terrible network issues with.
All right, Akash. We would then quickly invite you to deliver your speech before we lose you again. Yes.
Sir, shall I start?
Yes, you may. You have the floor.
Now, first of all, let me bring up the issue which has been quite clearly advertised by the proposition speaker. That is, how will the funds be allocated to maternity to employees having maternity leaves, and how it would be unfair to use taxpayers' money to pay the employees under maternity leave. Let us refer to the current scenario and let us refer to the practice of work from home, right? That is a solution to this problem. Parents, especially mothers who work from home, are at a better peace of mind and can work much better and with much more security, knowing that her child is close to her and she would be satisfied in working. That would increase productivity of the company tenfold than what it was earlier. Also, regarding the fact that how it would be unfair to use taxpayers' money because of the fact that the lesser productivity would be there, I can assure you the fact that work from home creates the same amount of productivity as it was earlier, as we have seen through the 6 to 7 months of lockdown we have all been through, right? Now also more and more women who are entering the workforce now than ever before, and that means more and more women are trying to balance their families and careers. By offering a comprehensive national paid maternity policy, it would help the workforce of the women now more than ever. Now, if a paternal or maternal leave was offered in the workforce, it wouldn't the parent wouldn't have to worry about the losing of wages, which would ultimately lead to a lot of depression and a lot of harmful effect on which would ultimately lead to lesser productivity of the parent. And but instead, if they were given that wage, their productivity would again increase tenfold, and they could also focus on caring and upbringing of the new child, which would again be a boon for our entire nation, right? Because every single child matters. Also, a survey conducted by US-based National Partnership for Women and Families conducted a Women at Work survey at Rutgers University, USA, which found that women who took paid maternity leave for 30 days or longer reported that their wages increased the year after the child was born. Also, the study also found that women who returned to work after a paid leave had a 39% lower likelihood of receiving public assistance in the year following their child's birth compared to those who didn't take, due to hormonal imbalance or any other health issues. Also, what does it ultimately mean? This shows that if paid maternal leave is offered, the more money taxpayers will have in their pockets, which also means that working mothers would be less concerned about their financial situation and would yield to better productivity. Now, also referring to the fact that this paid maternity leave also helps us in creating a better social environment, which would ultimately advertise the company's good points and would advertise the company and would make it a better and more employee-friendly company, which is the ultimate goal of every single company which aims to prosper in this market, which is of high competition, which in this high competition market, right? Also, the fact that no reduction in output would be a boon, would not only help to increase the office the employee-employer relationship, but also would bring about a good environment for all the others and would promote others to work better, knowing that they have a safer place and can call their office their second home. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thereby I rest my case, but certainly not my stance.
Thank you, Akash, for that speech. We will entertain questions for Akash's speech, but before we do that, I can see a lot of teachers present among us. Good morning, Sharmila ma'am. Good morning, Kalyan sir. Good morning, Shraddha ma'am. We will now entertain questions for Akash's speech.
Good morning, Raivat.
Good morning, sir. Arth has a question.
Yes, moderator sir. The speaker said that work from home has a very high productivity, but most of the companies, when they give maternity and paternity leave, generally during that time, they don't ask the person even to work from home. So how does this point stand in this regard? Because work from home is generally not something which is included when a person is on maternity and paternity leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Akash.
Moderator sir, let me clarify the thing by stating the fact that first of all, it does improve productivity and it is at par with the woman who is working at the office, right? also the fact that the new policies which are upcoming has included this as a viable option, because this option was always present, but the employees either didn't use it or didn't know that this was there, right? So this option would always be present, and this would be utilized by anyone who is opting for it.
Right. Thank you. We will now before we move on to the whips for today, I will just like to encapsulate the opposition's argument. The deputy leader of opposition went on to provide a case for work from home as a viable option for pregnant women. He also went on to say that, the absence of a maternity leave leads to lesser productivity, as opposed to if you provide maternity leave, that would increase, not only increase the productivity, but also allow the mother to focus on the care and upbringing of every child, because as he said, every single child matters. Then the deputy leader of opposition provided a survey as well. It was a woman at work survey conducted by Rutgers, which happened to mention the merits of a maternity leave for women who take maternity leave for a minimum of 30 days. We will now move on to the whips of today. The government whip, Oishani Pal, I would like to invite her to deliver her speech if she's ready. So if you're ready, Oishani, you have the floor.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I am the whip of the proposition team, and today I will be first elaborating on what our Prime Minister said. So the Prime Minister said that going to work ensures mental health of certain mothers. So suppose that a mother is always constantly in the work pressure, and her mental condition is always moving about from one place to another, and this is her general routine. So if suddenly she is grounded because of pregnancy, then it is a major mental issue for her. So she will suffer a lot of depression, and like suppose we're in the pandemic right now, in the COVID pandemic, and we are very much lethargic at the present moment, which is affecting our mental status. So if such a case occurs in mothers, it has been said that prenatal stress leads to okay, fine. According to a 2017 survey, it found that the prenatal stress leads to increased rates of miscarriage. If not so, there is a high chance of preterm birth, resulting in babies who are more likely to have developmental delays and learning disorders. As adults, they may gradually develop chronic heart problems, high blood pressure, diabetes, etc. Sometimes the consequences of a stressful pregnancy show up much later. A 2012 study shows that children born after prenatal stress may develop attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Thus, it is scientifically proven that mothers should try their best to relieve mental stress. And this can only be done when they go for work and they're mentally involved in some sort of activity. So moving on to my next point. One second. So Vedanshi said that employers have to pay for money in the private sectors for maternity leaves. However, there are certain small businesses for whom it is not possible. There are small businesses spread all over the world, and where will the money come from for them to pay for these leaves? This will in turn result in pressure on the employers of these businesses, and they won't be able to pay for the leaves, which in turn will result in loss of jobs because they are lacking the money to pay for them. Because So, okay. So next we move on to Advitiya's point, who said that there will be an increase in GDP as women after coming back from maternity leave will have more vigor in working. But I want to prove this wrong because as Devam said, physical lethargy will overcome mental health. Because after being inactive for such a prolonged period of time, they won't have as much as energy to go back to work, and with the same mindset, they won't be able to do that, which will result in an inefficiency in the workforce, in the human resources. Therefore, it is required that they continue working during this maternity leave period as well, during their pregnancy. I'll give an example. Suppose that in this lockdown, we can't all go for swimming, right? All the swimming pools are closed. So after the lockdown, if we go for such an activity, there will obviously be much more exhaustion in us when we go for swimming. It is not possible to do it the same way as we used to. So in the same way, they won't be able to work as effectively as they used to do. Furthermore, Aditya said that mother-father bonding time is absolutely essential. So enough bonding time is available after work. Mothers and fathers could simply adjust their work times and alternatively spend their time with their children. As Devam said, less money is given in leaves than the ordinary time. So in order to be both financially and emotionally stable, they could simply just acclimatize themselves with the current situation and adjust their work times to manage both. They will be both financially and emotionally stable in this way, as they will both earn money and spend time with their children. Further on, as Arth mentioned, in the discrimination of certain... Okay, so my next point is discrimination of certain women. There are certain organizations in which the employer's main objective... No, in fact, all employers have the objective to make as much profit as possible for their companies. So if they observe that a certain number of women have come for job interviews in their workplace, the women who are likely to have children in the near future, like Earth said, in that working age group, who are productive, but they will have children in the near future. So the employer will not want to choose such women for their workplace because they will have to spend on maternity leave for these people. They would choose the women who are not likely to have children in the near future. This will result in discrimination of certain women, a certain class of women, which will result in sexism, in turn lead to riots in the entire country, which will bring down the government. This is highly detrimental to society in general. So in conclusion, I would like to say that the government spends money on leaves from... The government spends money from the country's welfare budget for these maternity leaves, and this is detrimental because they won't be able to spend much money on other funds, on the welfare of other portions of the country. So also a professional relationship is there where where the employer has no... Okay. A professional relationship is there between the employer and the employee, where the employer has no responsibility to pay the employee for her personal life choice, and mental health of mothers is there, as I mentioned. And in this way, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Oishani.
Moderator, sir, she exceeded time by 35 seconds.
All right. Thank you. We will be entertaining questions for Oishani's speech. Aditya has a question. So yes, Aditya.
Yeah, since moderator spoke about how if a person does not work during when a baby is being delivered, it may create a mental pressure between not proper delivery of the baby. I would like to say that in every healthcare it is mentioned that a mother must have complete rest in the last 3 months of pregnancy to ensure a proper delivery of a healthy baby. So why would she recommend going to an office and working for a lot of hours in order to give a proper delivery?
Okay, thank you for your question. Well, you see that women are given much more physically less intensive jobs, so there are less chances of injury. However, this mental health has a major issue in the birth of a child. So if the mother is mentally unstable, then it is quite, then WHO has said that it is obvious that the health of the child will be affected. Mental stability is a major factor in determining the health of a child. So for working mothers, you should say that people who always work and move about from place to place, they will suffer a lethargy, and they will start thinking that they will start being tense about the birth of their child. If they stay at home and constantly without any work, they ponder about what will happen to my child, what will happen when they're born. So this thing will be inculcated in their minds. They will be much more tense. However, if they work, their mind will be diverted by some other activity which will help them force away their problems, which will help them to remove their tension from this entire childbirth tension thing, because everybody's tense when they're about to give birth to their child.
Thank you, Oishani. Just to encapsulate the government's stance, the government finished its case by mentioning that mothers who are working before they become pregnant being all of a sudden pushed away from work and into the realms of home provides itself to be a major mental issue, according to the government. They provided statistics as to how prenatal stress leads to a higher rate of miscarriages. They also rebutted or radically opposed a lot of what the opposition had mentioned when they said that when they provided statistics that it would lead to increased vigor in women who join the workforce after they give birth. They also provided alternatives where they mentioned that enough time is available after work for parental bonding with the child. And they elucidated on a lot of factors mentioned by the government itself on how discrimination of women is being indirectly propagated by this means of compulsory paid leave. Yes, we will now invite the opposition whip, Vedanshi Tare, to deliver her speech. So Vedanshi, if you're ready.
Yes, sir, I'm ready.
Yes, you have the floor.
So, good morning, one and all. I would like to lubricate the opposition's stand on the motion. With the increasing number of job opportunities that are arising in our country, there arises a need to ensure and formulate policies that ensure proper functioning of the workplaces. One such policy is the policy of parental leaves. Parenthood is a blessing, and to enjoy it is the right of every individual. It is the beginning of a new life, and the emotional ride begins much before the arrival of the newcomer. The idea of compulsory parental leave does not seem unreasonable to me. In fact, what seems unreasonable is the idea of giving the employer the liberty to decide whether or not to give the parental leave. Because, sir, at the end of it all, we all are humans, and to devote ourselves and our time to such a natural process, in my opinion, is much more important than any job work. Also, it is these small policies that can be the building blocks of the wall that prevent any kind of office harassment. Because as much as I would not like it to be, the junior senior, the receiver commander lag still exists in our country. And so to prevent any kind of injustice, compulsion of parental leave seems to be the only fair option. With the modification that not only the employer alone, but the government and employer collectively pay for the cost of the parental leave. So in conclusion, I would like to say that the parental leave, which should be mandatory, is not a compulsion but a solution. It is the right and duty of all the parents to devote themselves and to each other and the newcomer, because after all, it is the next generation we are taking care of. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Vedanshi, for that speech. We will now be entertaining questions on Vedanshi's speech. Does anyone have a question? All right. Since I can't see any questions so far, Vedanshi, would you like to entertain a question from the end of the moderator?
Yes, sir, sure.
All right. You happened to mention something very important, which was that the government and the private sector or the employer could share the funds in providing maternity leave. So do you think that the government should then provide some form of support to the private sector, which would give off the image that the government is taking care of that part of the problem? So the private sector doesn't really have to worry about that. So can you see any problems with that solution, or do you think that's fine?
Sir, actually, I think it is a solution that is fine, because if the government and the private sector work collectively, this would not be a problem anymore.
All right. Thank you, Vedanshi. I would just like to encapsulate the opposition's arguments. The opposition mentioned that prioritization of providing funds towards such a natural process is of utmost importance because, again, we are all humans. The opposition then went on to mention the prevalence of a junior-senior dynamic, which is very much present, and this is the only way to sort of tackle that issue as well. And they provided a solution which happened to be some form of a collaboration between the government and the private sector, which would ensure that the funds are ready and in place to help any corporation if and when they need the funds to provide maternity leave. Right. Thank you, everyone, for your speeches. I would just like to provide formally my moderator's remarks while the judges tabulate and provide the host or the event heads with their results, right? Also, parliamentary debates don't usually have a best speaker, award, but I would just like to, and I've asked the members that be.
Raibat, I'm really sorry to interrupt. Are we not having reply speeches?
Yeah.
Yes, and thank you so much for reminding me. I am extremely sorry again, 1,000 apologies. We will have reply speeches. I will just explain what reply speeches are before we can have them. Reply speeches are to be given by either side. Any one speaker of either side has to reply to the entire case or the argument that was presented by the opposing side. And it's a 2-minute speech. This will have no rebuttals. This will have no questions. All right. It is just a speech that has been given to reply to all of the allegations or all of the things that were said against their argument, right? Do both the teams know which speaker is going to reply? Vaayu House?
Yes, sir. From Vaayu House, I'm going to be the reply speaker.
And from Agni?
I'm going to be the reply speaker.
Who's I? All right.
Aditya.
All right, thank you. Right then. We will have the reply speech of the government first. Although ideally it should be the opposition.
But, yes. Yeah, exactly. So
there is, yes, then.
That is what I was asking about, because opposition generally gives a reply speech first, right?
No, is it fine to amend the procedure slightly and allow the government to reply first? Or do you want to clarify as to why I'm amending that procedure?
Yeah, that will be like for knowledge purposes.
No, I would actually like to provide that clarification towards the end of the debate, but ideally it should be the opposition which replies to the government first. However, in motions which are multi-elemented, all right, and it seems to be lopsided on an apparent note, there the government or the moderator of parliamentary debates as such can take the liberty to ask the government to reply to the opposition first, if that's not a problem with the government. So if that's not an issue, then I would just request the government. Otherwise, we could have the opposition reply first. So yes. So is that fine?
Right, but we would like, the government would like if the opposition.
All right. So okay, we will have the opposition reply first. From Agni House, Aditya, the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, will be delivering his speech. So whenever you're ready, you have the floor.
Yeah, am I ready? I mean, sorry. Am I audible and visible?
All right, yes, you are.
Yeah, so we must understand that parenting is a very important job, and since all of the opposition speakers have told throughout this entire thing, women do most of parenting work with the household chores during their maternity, and the least that a company can do is understand and respect that person outside of the four walls of our office has an own life also. Must understand, the government also should understand that providing certain funds to private companies just to facilitate these leaves would be a boon in the future. For example, if I have 4 children today and with my leave I can take care of them, I take care of them, I bring them as better humans. Those 4 children will later in the future become 400. And those 400 will contribute to the society in a more and far greater way, because I was there in my home during the time when they were growing up to bring them up, to bring them as better human beings. And I would have contributed to the society in a better way if any person who requires a leave is given the facility to even take care of his or her home with balancing his or her life's work in the workplace. And to rest the opposition's case, I believe a compulsory leave is the thing that is what humanity stands for. Humanity stands for respect, humanity stands for love, humanity stands for care. So I think such a thing, a compulsory leave, should be given, and as this will help in the development of the society and the development of the world. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Aditya, for your reply speech. I would now like to invite the government to provide their reply. So, Arth, whenever you're ready, you have the floor.
I'm ready.
All right then. Yes.
So very interestingly, the opposition has clearly shown that this notion and this whole concept of humanity, which they bring into the discussion of maternity and paternity leaves, what we must understand is the word humanity here is like a gun. And you put the gun on the owners of the startups and tell them that if you don't do this, then you are inhuman. And which obviously is an added pressure if the government of a country does that, because a government of a country would want their startups to grow. And when we talk about the personal care accounts, which I had already talked about while talking about the solution suggested by Democrats, it is really important to take into account the alternatives, as the government of the day has been reiterating throughout their argument. And when we talk about, since the opposition talked about how the office people need to understand that a certain employer has a life beyond the 4 walls of the office. But we must understand that the life beyond the 4 walls of the office shouldn't be the concern of the boss of the person, because that is the person's personal life, and the person has been entitled to make choices with regard to their personal life. And even if the company is trying to offer help, even if the company is trying to offer any kind of subsidy, we cannot let the company to be an institution in the first place, which is allowed to establish control on our personal lives, because that is the start of something which is very, very unethical per se. Now, having the inclusion of maternity and paternity leaves in a lawful manner shouldn't be supported by shouldn't be supported in the House, and the government of the House would strictly deem it, the whole idea of maternity and paternity leaves, as a very unreasonable model, because there are better alternatives to it. And we firmly believe those alternatives are better implemented than this one. And the idea of a compulsory, the keyword compulsory, as reiterated by the Prime Minister, plays a very huge dynamic in the arguments which we are making. That is all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Arth, for your reply. And thank you, everyone, for all of your speeches. With that, the debate surely comes to an end. And while I did the results and present that to, I would just like to formally submit my moderator's remark. But before I do so, I would just like to also mention that since you don't usually have a best speaker in parliamentary debates, I would like to, from my end, provide a moderator's choice award. And I have asked the organizers that be, if that's all right, and they've allowed me to do so. Okay, so this motion, in my opinion, is a very multifaceted motion. It's a very tricky motion, all right, because you have various elements. Now, like yesterday, the remarks that I presented yesterday, today's remarks are going to be slightly different, because I was constantly thinking, how would I debate this if I was asked to? Right? So how I would go about it would be to, and I'm not choosing sides here. I'm not choosing the, like, whether I'm opposition or proposition, but I'm just saying what I would place emphasis on more than the word maternity paternity leave or the phrase maternity paternity leave, the word compulsory is extremely important, right? The fact that you're binding it as an obligation under law, that if you are a corporation, if you are providing work to someone, then you also have to provide this if they ask you to, right? That is of extreme importance, and that could be played on by both sides. Rather than discussing the ills, maladies, demerits of maternity paternity leave in general, because that comes under a social radar, that comes under a social spectrum. And I'm just saying, because you have a lot of judges in lots of debates who come in with preconceived notions, more often than not, all right? You have people who judge debates with an idea in their head, all right, that this is what I think is right, therefore this person is saying that, and that must be wrong. So to avoid that, to avoid making a person or making the judge feel that you are saying something wrong, you play on something that is not that divisive. You play on words that are not divisive. All right. So, so if you were to rather than discussing the benefits or the demerits of maternity or paternity leave, if you could rather focus on how a compulsory obligation of the same under law could be detrimental or beneficial, all right, then that would be of high relevance in my opinion. And that was talked about, but the primary focus, as much as I saw, was still about the fact that, okay, maternity paternity leave is a burden, and no, it's not. All right. So that presents itself to be a little bit of an issue only because it doesn't get us anywhere. You will keep, one side will keep on saying that, it's bad, one side will keep on saying it's good. You're not getting any headway with that sort of an argument, that kind of a binary argument, right? Very interesting things were mentioned. I must say, all right, that the seamless inclusion of statistics is something that most debaters lack. And most debaters over here today have achieved, and credit to you for that. Because I tend to personally avoid statistics because I just don't know how to present them. I don't know how to seamlessly include that into my speech. Oftentimes, it seems like a lecture that I've, sort of learned beforehand. But today, almost every speaker provided at least one statistic, provided that seamlessly. It was a different matter altogether that statistic wasn't elaborated upon. You have had a lot of speakers today mentioning, okay, Ivy League universities and, WHO, UN, ILO. These are important words that are being thrown around like candy, That should be a little elaborated upon. What was the study about? What was the number? What was the percentage? When was it published? These things are a little important, in my opinion. That very interesting things which I thought were very of increased relevance was the fact that there are many people who spoke about the mental health aspect of things, which when you associate that with maternity or paternity leave is extremely essential. And what is more than credit worthy is that both sides had a different take on the mental health aspect of things. All right. Yes, Arth.
Sir, I just have a question there. Since you said that mentioning the details of the statistics is important, but just a debate-related question, sir. If we, for example, if we elaborate when it was published with all the details, if we include with regard to the statistics, don't we miss out on the time to make the actual argument which has been on focus? So, which is why we cut down on the time with regard to introducing the details of the statistics.
I'm not accusing.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. My solution to that would be, it's very simple. I'll tell you. Since someone mentioned, say for instance, an ILO statistic, all right, International Labour Organization, that's 3 words, cut it down to ILO. You save a lot of time there, beginning with that, all right. You just say a 2017 ILO study happened to mention that 30% women, blah, 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 all right. It's just as simple as that. You don't have to be like, this was the study, and okay. So that's one. Like I was saying, I lost my train of thought, sorry. Yes, mental health. Both sides spoke about mental health and different takes on it, which was very important. And that was very credit-worthy. You don't see that enough, all right? You don't see two sides of the coin being presented so meticulously. All right. There are a couple of things that I would have appreciated a little more. All right. There were alternatives being presented, like, someone mentioned a breastfeeding center. in place of maternity leave. Someone mentioned state packages, alternatives. But my only take on that would be bring in the word compulsory. You have countries, you have, let's say, the UK, for instance, when it provides maternity or paternity leave, that is an added incentive. You already have centers like breastfeeding centers, you have prayer rooms, you have every need of your personal life being met at the workplace as well, because the government placed a lot of emphasis on the fact that work is work, that's your professional life, and what you do at home is your own business. All right. Well, in my opinion, it's really not, because tackling that part of the motion, I don't think is as important as tackling the compulsory aspect of things, because you will see time and again, whether it's a high capitalist corporation or whether it's a left-wing organization or whether it's a non-governmental organization, everybody places importance on the fact that our employees are human, our employers are human, and our customers are human, right? So when these three elements of a business package are human, then those needs need to be met. If a corporation can allocate a budget for a yearly annual picnic, all right, if a corporation can allocate a budget for various initiatives that they do, buy one get one free, that cuts off a certain amount of your budget in the initial stages, then they need to think in the long run, in my opinion. If that can be allocated a budget for, then why not a natural process? This is a question it's a very natural question for the opposition to ask. This is a question that, in my opinion, should have been very well tackled with by the government by using the word compulsory. When the word compulsory comes in, when it becomes lawfully obligated to a corporation, then that essentially means that today, if I want to start a business, before starting that business, before coming up with the resources to start that business, I have to think, how will I provide resources to both male and female employees when they want to seek leave during pregnancy? When that question becomes a compulsory question I have to ask myself, then that limits a lot of corporations from even starting off a business, So these are important questions which I feel like weren't addressed. Otherwise, I feel that everything was more or less addressed. There was one point that one of the speakers made about gender diversity and gender norms and how discrimination of women would occur because, I feel like blanket statements were made quite a bit. So if you have people, it was like a woman is more likely to feel, it will feel physical lethargy, and physical lethargy will overtake mental health. The whole concept of a compulsory paid maternity leave is on the behest of the fact that a woman might seek said leave, So that essentially means that I get to decide whether I have physical lethargy after work. I get to decide if I have mental health issues. My employer will not throw that blanket statement at me and say that, no, you will have physical lethargy, therefore I'm resting my case over here, right? So look at it from an aspect of more than likely. Look at it from an aspect of, someone is more than likely to do this because of one study we have found. And therefore, we would like to suggest suggestive measures. Parliamentary debates don't mean that we have to advocate this and this is what it is. That cuts off the scope for a debate altogether. And what happens as a binary over here is someone who firmly believes on any one particular thing and someone who firmly disbelieves that. So for instance, if we were having, let's say, a religious debate, not a religious debate, but let's say a debate on God, for instance. There have been many debates over here which, do you believe in God or does God not exist? So I feel like the sheer lack of acknowledgement. So someone who firmly says that, there is God, I believe in God. And someone who says that there is no God, I do not believe in the concept of a God. They are both riding on the same boat. And that boat is leading nowhere. The sheer acknowledgement of a fact that, yes, I think this is this, but, that facilitates a good debate, in my opinion. That's all I had to say. But other than that, I will provide feedback to whoever asks me after the debate. But I feel like I've been speaking for too long now, so I will stop. Thank you. That was my remarks. If the judges are done with their tabulation,
moderator, sir, one thing. The results will be declared in the meeting only, not in the closing ceremony.
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
All right then.
So before we move on to the results, which have by now been tabulated by the judges already, greetings once again to all the teachers who are present here. So if any of the teachers out here would like to put in their valuable inputs about the debate or any remarks or feedback, that would be welcome by everyone present here.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I would like to speak something. Hello, everybody. It was really nice seeing all of you once again. And I really appreciate whatever you've spoken and so well delivered upon. I would just like to ask one, I just want to clarify this thing. We have discussed a lot of things about compulsory maternity leave, on humanitarian grounds, everything. Now, what about the women, who are working in the unorganized sector, such as the contractual workers, the farmers, the casual workers, the self-employed women, and also to take into account the housewives? Is there any scope of any compulsory maternity leave from the part of the government on these women?
I would thank you so much, ma'am, for mentioning that. I would actually like to answer that. If no one.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So what happens, in my opinion, I think that's a wonderful question to ask, and I think that is something that has also been debated upon a lot. The unorganized sector in a country like ours, especially, is a huge sector. So you have a lot of indigenous women, a lot of women who don't know what their rights are. They don't even know that that such a thing exists. So you have governments where the literacy rate is on the higher end. So you have governments, let's say, of Tripura, of Kerala, coming up with state initiatives, although not supported by the central government, which in my opinion, need to be supported. You have state initiatives where we will provide women with a mobile phone. We will provide women with a daily access to the newspaper to make them aware of their rights while working in the unorganized sector. And yes, we will provide them. We have state packages to provide them maternity leave. Although, however, a lot of people are not aware of these initiatives. So even in states like West Bengal, many people are not aware of existing state initiatives already. The fact that I can go to a state administrative tribunal and seek some recourse is unaware to me as someone who makes, let's say, incense sticks for a daily business. Right? So these are very important things, and I would like to mention something very important since you touched upon this. I happened to work under a lawyer this past month for an entire month, and she represents, her name is Karuna Nandi, and she represents clients at the Supreme Court. And we came across a case of this doctor who used to work for the Delhi government, and she had a child and she applied for maternity leave. And you can, under the state bylaws, you can apply for a maternity leave for a period of 6 months. So she applied, and after those 6 months, she found that her child was diagnosed to be autistic. So she applied for a special leave, which you can take for a period of 1 year. Again, this is a paid leave. She kept on filing applications with no reply from the government. So she kept on, even after taking the leave and after speaking to her immediate seniors, she kept on filing letters saying that, I have filed a leave and everything. And after that 1 year, she applied for what you call an extraordinary leave, where you take some patients, you do private consultancy, but you essentially are on leave, So that can be taken for a period of an extra 1.5 years. She took that as well. After she joined, she placed a very simple request that whichever hospital you place me in, my house must be in a proximate distance. So I must be able to access my house a little. It needs to be close to my house. And that, I think, is a very fair request. You have people asking for similar requests all the time. The Delhi government started a probe against her and placed several notices on her person saying that no, we have to start legal proceedings against you, because just because you applied for a leave doesn't mean we sanction it, So even if you've been writing to us for the past 3 years, doesn't mean we give you a leave, So there, the only recourse is that you have to go to something called a Central Administrative Tribunal, the CAT court, which is in Delhi. Now, a very educated person who is a doctor at the highest level was unaware. She thought her career was over. So how can we expect that, unorganized sector, people in the unorganized sector are even bothered with the law. They are bothered about getting 30 rupees a day and going on with their life. So that, I think, is for the government to resolve on a daily basis.
Exactly. The government should take initiative. Yeah.
That's what I think.
Okay, so since we have a time constraint
Yes.
right now, we will be moving on to the results. Right.
The judges can unmute their microphones and also the respective moderator.
Right.
Right. So, do I declare the results now then?
Yes, perfect.
All right. I would actually request either Ornava or Anvesh to send me the results a little separately, so that I could
Okay, surely. I'll be sending it to you right now.
So
Fair enough.
Meanwhile, does any teacher want to share any remarks that they had about today's debate? Good morning, Anirban sir. I noticed that you came in, but I couldn't wish you a good morning.
I have put forward the scores to you, Reba.
All right. Thank you. So today I will be actually revealing the scores as well. The runners up for today's debate is Team Opposition with a total score of 124. That's Agni House. And the winners for today then are Vaayu House, the proposition, with a total score of 150. Also, my Moderator's Choice Award, I would like to extend to the leader of the opposition, Aditya Das. So yes, that would be my Moderator's Choice Award. That's all with the results. And thank you for such an enriching debate. These 2 days were extremely nostalgic for me, and I gather for both the judges as well. And it took me back to so many memories I have. And I know I'm taking up too much of your time, but I have to mention this. When we got selected for ASISC Nationals, that was a team of me and Shohan. And we were being accompanied by Anirban sir to Lucknow at CMS. And the three of us had a gala time. And we had so much fun, and we, at the same time worked a lot. Those memories they cannot be replicated at all. And the sheer feeling when you know somewhere or the other that you did well, but you don't want to jinx it, so you don't tell anybody. But when the results were being announced, when my name came up before Shohan, and both of us won Best Speaker in our respective categories. And my name came up, and I was extremely upset simply because, in my experience, when one school wins one award, the other person does not get the award. And I was so upset that he did not win and we did not win collectively. But I got up to the stage, and right after that, Shohan's name was announced, and I can't explain in words what I felt when I understood that the whole team won, that our school won, as a collective. We both came first. So our school came first. And when the principal of the school, when faculty members of the school came to us and asked us, we know you're from Kolkata by the looks of your accent, but which school? And we, very proudly said DPS Megacity. And they were like, oh, that's so nice and everything. And, we were welcomed by the trustees over there. Students came up to us and asked us. That is a feeling which I felt, which I feel like I don't think I will feel again. That feeling of representing an institution which has taught you so much, and the sheer feeling of pride, nothing else. I can't think of any other word. And we came back, we met a celebrity at the airport as well. It was the best time. And I would just like to, I'm so grateful for all that I have learned from the school, and for whatever experiences and memories that the school has allowed me to have. So yes, if the judges would like to share something. Would the judges like to share something?
Yes. So I'd just like to extend my thanks again for inviting me. It was amazing to be associated with Megacity again. It was lovely seeing all of you debate, and it was an amazing experience. It was a very we had a very difficult time judging. All of you were wonderful. And regarding parliamentary debates, I would encourage all of you to participate in more parliamentary debates and get the roles right, because this is something the judges felt that I think for most of people this is the first time, so that's totally fine. And parliamentary debates is an important format, and when you come to college, actually most debates are parliamentary debates. So as you do more debates, you'll get more familiar. Your arguments were really good, and I would just urge everyone to be more observant, keep up with the current affairs, so that you get a more multi-dimensional and you have a good approach to whatever topic you have in whatever little preparation time you have. And except that, I'm extremely proud of my school's debate team. I'm very hopeful for the future, and all the best to each and everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm incredibly incredibly grateful to be here. I'm especially grateful to the teachers of this school. While you're still in the school, please learn from them, because they are the reason I am here today, and I'm incredibly grateful to each and every one of them. I would encourage everyone to keep practicing, because sometimes you're not too good in the beginning, but you learn and you adapt. So really the key to being a good debater is to learn to practice, to overcome your fears. And well, it was, yes, as Raivat said, a very nostalgic experience, and it was great being with you all.
Thank you so much, Soham. So I would just like to take this moment. Shamila ma'am, would you like to say something?
Vidyut, just a minute. Actually, because of some school work, I'll have to leave. So before leaving, I just wanted to congratulate everybody and the speakers. Congratulations to my students. I'd never like to call them ex-students. They were students. They are in always once a dip side, as I said, always a dip side. And I'm so proud of all of you, Raivat, Soham, and this is really making me so proud that, Suprit, to hear you today, and it was really a pleasure. Okay, thank you all of you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Shamila ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So,
You can take over.
Thank you so much, Anvesh. So I would just like to say that
Excellent.
So finally, I just like to say that it really felt like I was back in school. Maybe let's say when I was in class 10, maybe when all of you guys were still my seniors, and I would still have these, weekly debate classes. And it truly felt that I was back in, let's say, O'Brien sir's class. And it feels so amazing to be back there. And just the experience and just to be with you guys again, it truly is a wonderful experience. So thank you for joining. Thank you for being our moderators. Thank you for being our judges. It really meant a lot to us. And I would also like to take this moment to thank all the speakers for their speeches. It was truly wonderful to hear your inputs, to hear your voice. And I would also like to thank the organizing committee, because they've managed to whip up this entire thing in such a short amount of time, get participants, get everything ready from videos to streaming, and a lot of things have been organized. And I just want to thank them for the sheer amount of work they've done.
For a little bit?
Yes, please.
I would personally, and I hope on behalf of Suprit and Soham as well, really like to thank everyone who worked on this. Thank you so much, Arth, for inviting me. I cannot be more grateful, because it was a wonderful experience. And I hear that everyone's done so well in all the other events as well. I keep hearing from all my friends who are judging the other events how well organized everything is. So I think that deserves a lot of credit, that you could pull this off at a time like this, that too on an online medium, with every teacher's support, with a lot of encouragement from everyone. I think that is worthy of a lot of credit. So,
thank you so much, Raivat. Thank you.
It really does mean a lot. So I can finally say that this concludes the finals of the Asian Parliamentary Debate. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Arav, I think we are done with the recording.
Yeah, we can cut it now. Yeah.